Hey everybody, it's Mark again, and I've got clocks that I'm waiting on parts from Time Savers, clocks that I got paint that's drying, other clock that I'm waiting for a cabinet friend of mine to bin out some board for me, and I got this clock right here I bought over in England a very long time ago. It was made in the USA. I'm not for sure where the back is, but I thought I'd go ahead and play around with this clock. This is a hairspring movement, and I want to show you what I found immediately wrong with this clock, and hopefully you're going to be able to see it. Hopefully I'm going to be able to see it. But the fork, which is right here, it's got a fork. There's a pin that's on this escapement wheel that, not escapement wheel, but the hairspring wheel. There's a pin on it that goes in between that fork that makes that fork rock back and forth. Well, that pin is not inside that fork. Right there's the pin. I'll rotate it over so you could see it. Right here's the pin, and it's hitting the outside of that fork, and needs to go inside that fork. But I'm going to take this clock apart. I'm going to clean it up, and hopefully get it back going again. I will say right now that the spring, you see this tail of the spring? Well, somebody pulled that spring through the slot here too far. And there are people that are smarter than me that can wind that section back around that hairspring coil, but I'm not that smart. If you pull that spring too far around through that, see, it goes through the speed adjustment lever, which is this lever right here, which I'm moving, and then it goes through this tab right here that has this tapered pin that holds that spring. A lot of people will put it in beat by pulling that spring further and further down, and then they get this tail. Well, somebody didn't notice that the pin was not inside the fork, and that's why this clock doesn't run. But when you coil up the spring, you coil it up, it's going to make it run faster. You release the coil, it's going to make it run slower. And so because they pulled all that extra wire through, it made that spring smaller, so the clock will run faster. And so I've got springs, but because I can't see that well anymore, and because these springs are a pain in the butt, I'm going to try to get the clock running, and I don't really care about whether it runs too fast or not. I just want it to tick away. And so the first thing that we have to do is to release the spring of the barrel. It this thing has got a threaded piece on it, and so it would have a winding key, and I'm sure I got some winding keys around here somewhere that might fit it. But this spring will go inside. It's got its own little barrel right here, even though this barrel's got some dirt and grime and crap on it. The spring will be concealed inside that barrel when I release the click. And so, and as you can see, the minute hand is falling off. So let me grab a container, take some pictures, and then we're going to start taking this thing apart. I mentioned this, I've already took my pictures, and you want to take pictures all the way around at different spots. And, you know, make sure you look at your pictures to so you can figure out how to put them back together. But I mentioned this before. I'm single. I eat a lot of microwavable foods. This works perfect as clock part containers. Minute hand. The glass is extremely dirty. The hour hand will come off. If you do not have a minute hand removal tool, and I've got 2 of them. I had to find the other one. I rarely use this thing. If it fits underneath a minute hand or an hour hand, then you put this underneath your hand. You'd want to protect the dial, and then you start turning this, and it will pull the hands off. But this is too big. This is for watchmakers. You put this underneath the hands, like so, and I'm going to do it to this second hand, and then you squeeze, and it pulls the hand off. But if you don't have this, you could use a pair of dikes, and I've showed this in other videos, but all you have to, you're not cutting the part. The way this tool is made, it's small here, and then it gets bigger. So all you have to do is stick it underneath, and it will, and squeeze, and it will start pulling your hand up. In this case, the hand is connected to this arbor here, to this center wheel here, so I don't want to break it off. To take the dial plate off, you undo these screws. And having drill reels, again, I can't pronounce that word, but having these kind of tools helps out with small screws like this. So you want to have an arsenal of tools in your possession if you're going to work on different kinds of clocks. And I can't see, so and my tools are magnetic. And I mentioned this before, if you're working on pocket watches, you do not want magnetic tools, because if the pocket watch parts become magnetized, it will stop your pocket watch. It will on a clock if the certain part becomes magnetized, but for the most part, no. And there it says, Made in USA. And so, the next step I'm going to do is to take this spring off. When I take this spring off, the clock might start ticking back and forth. Pulling out the tapered pin. And that's why I don't like working with hairsprings. I just screwed it up because I can't see anymore. But like I said, I've got different hairsprings, so I might be forced to try to put another hairspring in. But if I want to grab the spring, you know, that's why you have to be careful with this stuff. And that's why Cheryl from Adair's Repairs, she does a great job at working on these things. She could see better than me. But if the spring wasn't pulled out so far, all you had to do is sit here and rotate this thing until the spring comes out of the slot that it fits in there and the piece that slows it down. But because I screwed it up, I'm going to go ahead and take it off this way. We have a washer that goes on top of the adjustment tool, and that washer has got a tab on it that fits inside that hole. Like I said, there are people out there, there's videos that you can watch where this old man will sit here and play with this spring and play with this spring and play with this spring until it's no longer jacked up like it is. But I'm not that old man. So anyway, as I move this is the fork right here, and I'm going to pretend like I'm the spring. As I rotate back and forth, this is the escapement wheel. There are 2 pins on this fork. You should be able to see one right here. There are 2 pins on that fork, and that's what keeps the escapement wheel from moving until the spring rocks it back and forth. Now I'm rocking it back and forth, and you can see the escapement wheel, or you should be able to see the escapement wheel is moving, and then you should be able to see this wheel here is moving, and so forth. That wheel is moving, and it's all controlled by the hairspring. So anyway, I need to let down the power on this spring. And because it's in that barrel, I do not recommend you doing this, but this is what I'm going to do. I need to grab a key. I can't push the click. This part here is called the click. So I need to grab a key to wind it up a little bit so I can push the click out of the way. I've got a whole box of spare keys that you screw in for these clocks around here somewhere. At the moment, I can't find them. I'm that disorganized. However, using your drill, as you can see, it turns the arbor. So now I have to do is move this click out of the way, and then once I move that click out of my way, I'm going to put this drill in reverse. I need an extra set of hands. The spring's out of the way. I'll move the click out of the way. Well, the click is out of the way, so now I'm going to put this drill in reverse. And the clock is wound down. As I always say, sometimes you got to think outside the box when you're working on clocks. Sorry, I had to get my drill out of the way. So now the power's let down. The click is right there. I'll have to bend that spring a little bit whenever I'm ready to work on this thing again, to take it apart. My click just fell. Here it is. And now I could start taking this thing apart. Hopefully I have a nut driver that fits. Too small. Too small. I'll get one eventually. Too small. I'm running out of them. Too small. One more to go. When you know it's always the last one. If you don't have a set of these tools, I highly recommend that you buy them. My son bought me this set. You can get them off websites like Temu or wherever. I use this thing all the time. And it's a lot better than using pliers to mess up the brass nuts. So hopefully, if I could take this thing away, parts will still be in order. But maybe not. Here's the fork, and you can see the two pins. The two pins catch the escapement wheel. Let me put it where it belongs and show you. Got it backwards. Let me do this off camera and I'll get back. using the movement stand, it helps out a lot also. As you can see, the fork is here, and the two pins catch the escapement wheel. And so if you need to, take pictures straight down and then lift it up and take pictures all the way around. That way you know how to put this thing back together. I should have turned on my ultrasonic cleaner to get it to start heating up, but I didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on, and so stand by. I have all the parts that I want in the in this wire basket. I'm not putting the spring in there. I got springs, and like I said, I'm going to have to replace this thing. But the proper way to put one of these clocks in beat, you should see there's a slot in this collet. I'm going to get out my magnifier so you can see it. And by the way, if you do not have a wire basket, you could take a container that has a lid on it, put a bunch of little bitty holes in the plastic container, and open up the lid, put all your parts in, put that, and put holes in the top of the container. Put that in your cleaning solution, and the holes will allow the liquid to get into the container, keeping all your parts in that container. But anyway, let's get back to this hairspring system. You should be able to see that slot. This slot right here. The proper way to put these in beat is to take a very small screwdriver, and this one's too big, but a very small black tip screwdriver, and put this slot, and you have to be extremely careful because you will tear up that spring, as I've already done. But you put the slot screwdriver in that collet, and resting it on your clock, you rotate this. You see that's rotating. It's press fit on there. But anyway, you have to be very careful when you're doing this. But you rotate that until you get the even tick-tock where the fork is. There's that pin that the fork catches right there. I need to get one of these things with a point on it. Here we go. Right here is that pin that the fork catches, and it goes one way and it goes the other way. And if the system isn't in beat, then you rotate that collar. And on this particular clock, you might be rotating this collar, which is better because it's away from the spring. And so you rotate this collar, and it changes position to put the clock in beat, not pull the spring through. Pulling the spring through is going to make that spring smaller and make your clock run faster. You can find all kinds of videos. Like I said, Cheryl Adair just repaired a couple of German carriage clocks that take this type of system, and she shows you in her video. Like I said, she sees a lot better than I do, and she explains things a lot better than I do sometimes, and she does a really good job. That's why she's getting about 10 subscribers a day. Her channel is growing. You should check out her video. She does a really good job. But anyway, I've got some of these springs. The problem with in the past is me taking the collar off and finding one that fits on this shaft. In the past, I've broken some of these shafts, so hopefully I won't break this shaft. And this spring's already messed up. I've showed y'all this in other videos where you take a pair of tweezers, just like with the dikes, because the way they are made, because they start off small, then they get bigger, the tweezers are the same way. And all you have to do is put the tweezers underneath that brass and just slide the tweezers. And as you can see, the collar came off. I bought these from Time Savers. Came in 72 pieces. I forget how much I paid for them. But you just go through here and you find one that you think will work. And you put it back on. And hopefully the spring isn't attached to another spring, which in this case it is. So I'm going to find a different one. And trying to figure out whether or not it'll work or not. So I've done this when I spilt my bushings that I got bought from Time Savers because I opened the box the wrong way. So what I'm going to do is put this tweezers in this collet and then push it on and then mark it. Mark my tweezers to where that collet is. So now, if you should be able to see that mark. So now I'm going to go through every one of these and find one that comes up to that mark and doesn't go past it like the one that I selected. And hopefully I can find one. If not, I might be able to squeeze the collets to close up on my arbor. So anyway, I'm going to go through all these springs. And FYI, just so you know, the collet's spring is, there's a slot right here, and then at the very end it's got a smushed in piece. Now some of my brand new springs don't have the collets on them, and so if push comes to shove, maybe, and that is a big maybe, that I could put one of these springs on that collet. And again, that's a big maybe. Years ago, I used to work on pocket watches without glasses. I could see everything. I had eagle eyes. Anymore, I don't. I have glasses. I use these head loops. I use this microscope to see stuff. It sucks to get old, so don't ever get old. And I joke with people all the time. I have all these clocks in my house. I wish I could find one clock that A, slows down time, or B, I turn it backwards and I can go back in time. Now, I told you already how bad these springs are, and I want to show you something. You see this? You see this? There's no sense in that. They could have packaged these things better. And that's what happens when you use countries that aren't susceptible to quality assurance, I guess you would say. You know, because these things, and, you know, I ordered 72. Here's a collet. Here's a collet. I didn't order 72. It came in package of 72. But it could be a lot better system. They could have packaged them better, you know, because going through every one of these things and unwrapping them, you know, you get what you pay for, I guess. But I expect when I buy something that I don't have to go through them and separate them to find what I'm looking for. But anyway, with all that said, I did find one. I got it on the system. I might have put it too close. That will have to be determined later. I'm going to go ahead and throw this in the ultrasonic cleaner because I want that piece cleaned up also. And I'm just going to go ahead and take it off again because I don't want the spring itself in the ultrasonic cleaner. Again, using the tweezer, stick it underneath the spring, pushing the tweezers, squeezing the tweezers, and then pushing the tweezers board, it comes off. And I did that with a brand new spring that I put on, so everybody understands that sometimes the simplest tools will work for a job. You don't have to have anything fancy. And when I said this before, when you first start off in clockwork, you don't want to buy all these fancy tools. You might think at first that is what you want to do for the rest of your life. Well, I thought I was wanting to be a farrier for a very long time, but life changes what you're going to do. So don't spend all the money on all these fancy tools when you can get by with simple tools. Yeah, after you're making good money, and if a $4,000 pivot polish machine will make your life easier, go for it. I believe in that. If you're making the money and if you can find something that will make your life easier, yes, do it. But until you are ready to make that plunge, don't buy all these fancy tools. Learn with simple tools is what I'm getting at. Well, my parts in the parts cleaner. In the meantime, I'm going to try to clean up this case a little bit with mothers. There is a crack right here in the case, but there's nothing I could do about that. Just Mike posted a video recently where he was working on give me a second, I'll think of it. A curfew clock. I don't have a curfew clock, but anyway, he was wanting to shine up the bell, and he used half of the bell he shined up with mothers, and the other half he shined up with semi-chrome. And when he was all said and done with, he said they both do the same job basically, except for mothers, you can buy this container at Walmart for $6. Semi-chrome is a little bit more expensive. So I like watching Just Mike's videos. There's several people that I always mention in my YouTube channels. Torshindale, Derek, he shows people how to repair anniversary clocks. One of my youngest subscribers, this guy named Mark, he lives over in the Ukraine, Russian area. He's 14 years old, and he repairs his own clocks. I believe in supporting the youth. Jordan Busby, he knows a lot about clocks. He doesn't really show you, it's just like Mark, he doesn't show you how to repair clocks. I try to encourage these people to show you how to repair clocks, but I can only say so much. They have to decide for themselves if they want to show you how to repair clocks. But anyway, there's several people that I mentioned. Seth Lingenfelder, Clocks with Seth. There's several people that I mentioned. Like I said, I already told you about Cheryl Adair's Repairs. But I will leave their titles, and I do this here lately, their titles to their YouTube channels and my videos. Please take the time to subscribe to them. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to people's YouTube channels. And, these videos take a lot. Let me repeat that. These videos take up a lot of our time. I don't have to repair these clocks in front of y'all. I don't have to show you anything. But I believe in showing people stuff. I've been a teacher basically all my adult life. I taught a class while I was in the military. Out of 20 years in the military, I taught some type of class for at least 18 years while I was in the military. And I had people tell me, Mark, when you get out, you need to become a teacher. I thought about it. I substitute taught for a while. I won't go into that story, but anyway, I chose not to be a teacher. I've got relatives who are teachers, and my hat's off to them, because it takes a lot of work to become a teacher. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of skill. And I continue teaching people through my YouTube videos. So please take the time to subscribe to these people's channels. I'm going to continue cleaning this up. It's coming out quite nice. That's just with me. This is, it's not even the after picture. This is the before, and this is the mid process, me putting this mothers on. And I'm going to continue this off camera, and I'll get back to you whenever I'm done. I just wanted to show you a before and after. You see how that thing shines up? You can almost shave in this because it is nice and bright and pretty. And that is using a $6 product that you can buy at Walmart. You can buy them at automotive stores also, but it's not going to do this for every clock that you have, but before, after, big difference. When I'm done with this, I'm going to use some Renaissance wax, and I'm going to let the Renaissance wax dry. This Renaissance wax it won't prevent every fingerprint from showing up on your case, but it will prevent most fingerprints from showing up on your case. But this is a polish also. This is a polish, okay? In order to use the Renaissance wax after the mothers, you have to allow the Renaissance wax to dry for a few hours at least, if not overnight, to prevent this. You see that fingerprint? It'll wipe off, but the Renaissance wax is helpful in preventing fingerprints. It's one of the rare occasions that you will see me wear one of these gloves. You see how shiny this thing came out? It's like glass. And so I got a glove on to prevent fingerprints. Now I'm going to use the Renaissance wax and put a layer of Renaissance wax on it, and then I'm going to let it dry for a few hours before it's going to take me a while anyway with the movement. And when you put the Renaissance wax on, it makes it dull again, but once you wipe it off, it'll be shiny again. And like I say, you need to let this dry for a few hours at least, if not overnight. And again, there's nothing I could do about that crack. I don't have the skills to repair it. I'm going to set this to the side and put my cotton ball back inside my Renaissance wax container. Now the movement is out of the cleaner. I flushed it several times with water, and then I put it in denatured alcohol to soak up the water, and then I put it in my ice cream bucket with plastic containers that has a bunch of holes in it. And I had the choice to buy these skewers or buy more toothpicks, and I chose these skewers because they're longer. I just gotta get to them. So I'm going to take a toothpick and go through every one of these holes, because you heard me say this before, an ultrasonic is like a dishwasher. It will not get into the hard-to-reach spots. And these holes are the hard-to-reach spots. And you see this toothpick? It's already getting dirty. So you just keep on running the toothpick around until you are satisfied that it's nice and clean in every hole possible. And then you flip it over and you do the exact same thing, because I'm used to it, I guess. But believe it or not, there will be spots on this side that you couldn't get from the other side. You see how dirty the toothpick is? And if it gets too dirty, guess what? I could turn it around, or I can sharpen it. And I'm happy with that. And now it's on to the other plate. So I'm going to continue doing this, and then we'll get back to you. I thought I hit record, but apparently I didn't, because my camera shut off while I was talking. So we're going to do this again. Let's talk about the springs. On the very middle part of the spring, it looks something like this. The very end of it is curved, and there's a slot in that spring. And this winding arbor stem catches that slot to wind it up. And if your spring is slipping, it could be a couple things. This stem could be worn out. or the very center of it is not squeezed enough to catch it. Sometimes you got to take a pair of needle nose pliers and make that hole smaller, make this very end smaller. That way the stem catches it. On the other side of the spring, there's this hole, and that hole catches a lip, a protruding lip in this barrel. And if that lip is broken, I've got videos on what to do with that. But I had to take the spring all the way out because the ultrasonic cleaner, as I said, doesn't clean hard to reach spots, and it's still a little bit of dirt. But I took this and I stuck it in there and got all that dirt off. And so now I can inspect the spring. I can wipe the spring off. If the spring was dirty, rusty, whatever, you take some a scrubby pad, some WD-40, and clean it off. And afterwards, you would have to use like denatured alcohol to get rid of the WD-40. You could take. I've got a slot in my in my table over there where I've got a hole in my table, and I put a screwdriver in that section of the spring, and underneath my table I'll connect a pair of vice grips. That way the screwdriver doesn't come out on me, and then I could pull this spring all the way out like so and clean everything off. When you're dealing with heavy duty springs, wear gloves, wear eye protection. You can take a Q-tip and just do like I'm doing here to get most of the spring, if not all the spring, depending on your Q-tip and how strong it is. These are cheap Q-tips. So I'll get most of the spring like this. In this little bitty spring, I'll probably get all of it to wipe it off. And again, if it was a heavy-duty spring, wear your PPE, personal protective equipment. There, it went all the way through, and see all the crap I got off of this spring. And that's because, again, the ultrasonic cleaner, no matter how good your cleaning solution is, it's not going to get everything. It's like a dishwasher. So now, I'm happy with this spring. And again, this is the same procedure you would use if you were dealing with a great big spring, except for you would have your protective equipment on. There's only one way that the spring goes in, okay? The notch is right here. The notch is right there. So you can't put the spring in this way because this hole will come off that notch. So you have to put it in this way. That way that hole catches that notch and you're able to wind it up. You have to, and I repeat, you have to, the most important part of doing this is putting that hole to catch that notch. And that could take a little bit of time to do that. You might have to do it a couple of times. But once you get that hole to catch that notch, you just start, and going around the first layer, you just start putting the spring in just like so. And again, if you got a great big spring, you will wear gloves, and you will wear protective eye protection. These springs can explode on you, even brand new springs. And I've been doing this long enough that if I lose grip or whatever, I'll throw this thing away from me. I'd rather damage the wall and knock off my tools than hurt myself. So just continue winding it up, and when you get to the very end, you can just push it in. So now this is ready for me to put some oil on it, and I'm not going to use grease. I'm just going to use my clock oil that I use for everything else. A lot of people will use grease. Again, the purpose of my videos is to show you what I do. What you do is totally up to you. I'm going to grab some oil on my toothpick, and I'm going to just rub it around the same way I did with that Q-tip. Just lubricating the spring, and where I get to the point where I think my toothpick is going to break, like so, I'm just going to grab some oil and drop it onto the spring in different spots. And when it winds up, it will go where it needs to go. The only difference between this and a complete barrel spring is with a complete barrel spring, in order to put the cap on the barrel, the spring has to go below the lip that's inside the barrel. And the way you make this spring nice and flat, you get a block of wood, and you find a hole that this part is going to go in the hole. And I'm going to use a different block of wood because it's got a bigger hole, and I'll be able to show you better. You just go like this. And that will make the spring nice and flat, and it will go below the lip that is in the barrel. Of course, this one don't have a cap on it, and so but anyway, that's how you get your spring, because if your spring is not below that lip, your cap will never go on. And that is something else. When you order a spring, now I'm going to take this spring back out and show you how I took it out in the first place. Just grab a hold of it with a pair of tweezers, pull it out just a little bit, and until it's like that, and then you just let it start coming out in your hand. And again, you're going to have gloves on. When you order a spring, the thickness is important, but it's not. If you order springs from Time Savers, you're going to want to know the type of spring it is. This is a barrel spring, even though it's not a complete barrel. A loop-end spring is where like antique American clocks, Korean clocks, some Lux clocks. It's got a spring that is built like this, and it's a bad drawing, I know, but anyways, it's the way the clock is designed to connect the end of the spring. But this is a barrel type spring, even though it's not a complete barrel. You have to know the width, and you have to know the length of the spring. The thickness is going to be automatic on whatever you find the length and the width of the spring. The length and the width is the most important things. And so you might, if you got a broken spring, you stretch this thing out, you might have to measure 2 or 3 pieces and add them all up to get the total length of the spring. You don't want to go over the length. You can go under the length, but it's not going to wind the clock will not last as long. If it's an 8-day clock, it might last only 6 days. The width of the spring is the most important thing when it comes to a spring. Like in this barrel spring, in this case, it don't matter. If I went a 1/16 of an inch over, it wouldn't matter. But in a typical barrel spring, you have to be able to put the spring underneath that lip that I was telling you about. If the spring is wider than what you're taking out, more than likely, you will not be able to put the cap on because that spring will not go underneath that lip. So the length and the width is the most important part of ordering a spring. Years ago, let's talk about thickness. Years ago, 100 years ago, they made springs differently than what they do now. See, I almost got this thing in, so I can, bam, and it's in. So an antique spring, because it's made out of different material, it could be thicker than the springs of today. All right, I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't, I'm saying it could be. So what you're looking for is the length and the width. The thickness doesn't really matter, as long as the length and the width is the same. Because I don't know how to explain it any better than that. The length and the width of the spring is what you're looking for. Getting back to the hairspring system. In the process of putting the spring on, this middle wheel moved on me. So I had to look at my pictures to find out where the middle wheel is. And the middle wheel is in about the middle of the shaft. And then I wanted to know where the spring was. From the middle wheel to the tip, the spring is halfway between that. So I need to push it down more. So using my block of wood and using my tweezers, I'm going to push this spring down. And hopefully I don't break it. Needs to go down further. Needs to go down just a little bit more. I'm okay with that. A lot of, I complain about these things. I don't like them. And the reason why I don't like them because of my eyesight. I told you I used to repair my own pocket watches. How do you think pocket watches work? They have a spring like this to move the escapement wheel back and forth. And so they're good design for pocket watches, but for clocks, I don't like them because that's what I work on these days. But anyway, I do know how to repair this type of clock. I just prefer not to because I have broken several of these springs, because if you don't have a steady hand when you're doing everything, or if you pick up the wrong tool, I believe that this spring here is made out of copper. The screwdriver is magnetic. Let me see if I can find the end of this thing. I just do one better. I know this is magnetic and it's got a powerful magnet on it. So it's not a metal spring, it's a brass or copper spring. And so, again, I ordered these through Time Savers. They're made in India. I know how to work on this stuff. I prefer not to work on it. And yes, I looked at my picture to see what I just told you. It looks like the center wheel is in the middle of the shaft, and the hairspring is in the middle of the, I looked at the wrong piece. Here's the hairspring. I need to bring that hairspring back down because it's not in the middle between here and the shaft. It's about 1/3 distance. I'll look at another picture and see what I got. I'm gonna zoom in on this one. Maybe that's too far. You can't really see anything once I zoomed in. But anyway, my point is I did take pictures. If you look at this hairspring again, sorry, the escapement, this system, on the very end, there are sharp pointed tips on both sides. Now those fit in these screws. On the other side of this screw, and the other side of this screw. So you want to clean those divots out, making sure there's nothing in there on both screws. So now I'm about ready to put this movement back together, and I'm going to do that off camera. I do want to put this piece in, and you want to remember which way it came out. The thread area, which is the handle of the winding stem, it came out this way. But you just want to turn it until it grabs. Like I said, if your clock is slipping when you're winding it, it's because this isn't grabbing. And I should be able to pull this out, and the spring comes with it. And if it doesn't, guess what? It's not catching. And so, because it's not catching, I'm going to take a pair of needle nose pliers, some that will fit in there, and I'm going to bend this section just a little bit. If you bend it too much, you're going to break it. So don't bend it too much. It's hardened steel. Let me show you something. if I can get this microscope to come back on. This piece right here is that catch. Typically, there's a lip on it. Not in this case. And that's why when I pull it out, it doesn't bring the spring out. But typically there's a catch on it. Yes, I could grind a catch on it, but I'm not going to. I do believe that this will work suffice, because you're not going to be pulling the spring out. They're caught. But most clocks have got a lip on that catch. Just that this clock doesn't. Isn't that a beautiful case? Anyway, I'm going to put this movement back together off camera. Even though some people don't believe me, I do take pictures. So I was going by my pictures, and I'm like, man, this doesn't make any sense. Because this is a wheel. This is a pinion gear. Pinion gears match up with teeth on the wheel. This wheel here, this is a great wheel. This is the minute wheel with center arbor. So this is a great wheel. This would be the first wheel, second wheel, etc. The second wheel here, because the great wheel is the first wheel. The second wheel here, it's not matching up with the wheel. The pinion gear is not matching up with the wheel. And then I realized that this wheel came out when I was taking it apart, and I got it upside down. And I'll explain that more. I still don't have this wheel, which is the escapement wheel, and the fork in place. But when the minute wheel with center arbor is turned, you will see all the other wheels are turning. And that's because this pinion gear here is matching up with the wheel. Again, this is a wheel, and then this is a pinion gear. There are pinion gears and there's lantern gears. In this, the lantern gears are in antique clocks, such as this clock right here, which is a Black Horse shield clock. This is a lantern gear. It's got wires in between these two collars that the wheels line up with, such as this. Alright, so, and I've got a video that explains the difference between wheels and gears and how to put them together. So, the point I'm trying to get across, if you know that a wheel matches up with a gear, whether it's a lantern gear or pinion gear, and for some strange reason your pictures don't turn out so you can figure them out, you can always figure it out as long as you realize that a wheel matches up with a lantern, with a gear of some sort. So the only two things that I got left to put on this one, actually three, is the hairspring escapement assembly, the escapement wheel, and the fork assembly. And this fork assembly, I don't know, I'm going to have to study some fork assemblies, because this pin right here is loose, and I don't know whether it's supposed to go back or whether it goes in the front like this. Honestly, I don't know. So I'm going to have to pause my work and figure out how that thing goes on. And because I don't know. So I'm going to have to look at some videos, look at some pictures, etc. to figure out what to do. I hope y'all are liking this video. Please leave me some comments. Subscribe to my channel. Yeah, I made a mistake. Yeah, I messed up the spring. But I told you at the beginning when I was taking it apart that spring was pulled through too far through, and it should be replaced anyway. So I don't care whether I broke it or not, or made it worse, because I already knew that I was going to have to replace it, because I'm not that old gentleman that could sit here and twist things out and put them back where they belong. I don't have that kind of experience working with these things. But you can watch this video where this guy could take this spring and make it all round again. He's got more patience than I do. And He might not be able to do it now. He's a pretty old gentleman when I watched this video, but he might have the shakes now. But he didn't back then. He was really good. If you look at my picture that I did take, that wire is more toward the front here. Again, I don't know. I'm going to look at some others. Searching for a pallet fork assembly for a clock, these popped up. So you can see that that wire goes between the forks assembly. And it shows you that over and over and over again. I should know that, but I work on so many clocks, I can't remember everything. It's called the guard pin. And let's see what it does. 3-minute video.
Which is better for a guy who wants to burn fat and build muscle. Hey, so I wanted to apologize.
At the end of the pallet fork, there are 3 parts. The fork horn. The horn is bent and impulse will not be able to enter into the fork slot, and the watch will not run. The fork slot. This is where the impulse tool passes through. That's that square section. The gap between the fork slot and impulse tools is only 0.2 millimeters. This is on pocket watches, but as I said, it's the same thing. And then the guard pin, and I'm not for sure what that does. Guard pin is also part of the safety system. The guard pin passes through the crescents of the safety roller. So there we go. And they're going to show you how it works. But in that case, the guard pin was sticking above the safety roller. But anyway, I know what to look at. I oiled the pivots. I also put a drop of oil on the pallet, which is these pieces of wire coming off that fork. And now when I move the fork, you will see the escapement wheel, and I gave it a little bit of wind. You will see the escapement wheel doing its thing. So now it's time to put the hairspring escapement in. Which I took this screw out, I believe. I'm gonna have to look at my pictures. There's the slow, fast part, and so yes, that's the screw that I took out. And so now I have to put the hairspring in, and no, I'm not going to do it on video. I told you I had trouble seeing, but the pin that I discussed in the beginning, this pin right here, is what goes between the forks, and that is the issue that this clock had to start with. It wasn't between the forks. So let me do that off camera. I got it in, and it was a pain in the butt, and as you can see, it's starting to tick. I mean, it's starting to tick, but A, I don't have it wound up enough, and B, I might have to put it in B. And C, because I've been sitting here all night, it's almost 6 o'clock in the morning. I have not looked for the key that I told you I need, and I got a box full of them around here. So, voila, I'm using my drill to wind this thing up. It's slipping off my drill. I need to give it a little bit more torque. Yeah, I know I'm going to get people who are going to complain because I'm winding this up with the drill. This clock has been sitting in a box for a while. It's wound up. And guess what? I didn't hurt myself. I didn't break anything. So now, to see if it stays running. It doesn't stay running like I want it to. And so the collar needs to be adjusted a little bit. And by the way, if you tighten these screws too tight, guess what? Your clock's not going to stay running. So make sure that you don't tighten the screws too tight. And again, the way I put the hairspring on, I barely put any spring into the slot where it goes. There's maybe an eighth of an inch. It still needs to be put in bead, I believe, but I'm going to see how long it stays running just like that. This first time in 26 years that this clock has run. At least I bought this clock over in England, all right? I left England in 2000. I started collecting clocks in 99. I don't know whether I bought this in 99 or whether I bought this in 2000. So 25 years, 25 years, at least, since this thing has been running, and now it's ticking away. Yes, I know how to work on these type of clocks. I just prefer not to because of the hairspring system in them. They're when you get poor eyesight, and I've got a magnifying glass here, but it doesn't help, and it's got this special thing here that you could see things up close, but you can't work on clocks when things are up close like that. And so again, I'm going to leave it sitting there running, but it's ticking away. If it stays running for an hour, the thing is going back in the case. It's 6 a.m. here now. I'm happy. Like I said, if you ever worked on pocket watches, you can work on those things. I just prefer not to work on those things. It was designed for a pocket watch because you cannot put a freaking pendulum in a pocket watch. That is a pendulum for pocket watches and for wristwatches. I'd rather have a pendulum system on a clock to work on. Now, with that said, that's got a pendulum system on it, okay? But I'm waiting on parts. Pivots were broken, and I had to re-drill a pivot. And instead of cutting drill bits off like I normally do, I ordered some pivot staff from Time Savers, and there's the hole that I drilled. And so, anyway, we'll get back to you in an hour if this thing's still running, and we'll put it all back together. Again, I thought I hit record. I used spray weight glass cleaner on this, and it cleaned up the glass really well. My fingerprints are on it. I need to wipe it off again with a clean paper towel. But you can buy spray weight glass cleaner at like Menards, Home Depot, other places. But I wanted to work on this clock because I kept walking by, and it's been sitting in a box for 25 years. 25 years. So, Sir Lucky, I got a friend and a group member and a subscriber to my YouTube channel, Robert Lindsay, whom I call Sir Lucky because he's one of the luckiest people I know when it comes to buying cuckoo clocks. For example, there was a antique railroad cuckoo clock for sale on Marketplace for $125. And Sir Lucky talked to people into shipping it to him and only paying them a total of $75. He is one of the luckiest people I know when it comes to buying cuckoo clocks. He doesn't work on other types of clocks, but he does a great job at working on cuckoo clocks, and he learned everything he knows from watching my YouTube videos. But Sir Lucky, I get tired of working on cuckoo clocks. My cuckoo clocks have not been in boxes for 25 years. I only went cuckoo for cuckoo clocks in 2019 after I repaired my first cuckoo clock. I've talked about this before. I bought my very first cuckoo clock, which I recently sold to another friend of mine over in England back in 1999, 2000. He was wanting a railroad style cuckoo clock for his grandson. I told him I got one. I'd sell it to him for pretty cheap. It's got a brand new great wheel on it. It was still in a box waiting for me to finish. And I never finished it. I told him I'd sell it to him, and he agreed he wanted it. So anyway, after I repaired that very first clock, it was 5 years later, the great wheel quit working. That I went cuckoo for cuckoo clocks, and I started buying up cuckoo clocks, and I was answering everybody's questions, and then I went to YouTube videos on Facebook, and then I went to YouTube videos, and I still, to this day, from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I'm answering somebody's questions on cuckoo clocks. And I get tired of working on cuckoo clocks all the time, and I get tired of just looking at my cuckoo clocks, so every once in a while you have to change it up, or life is boring enough. So every once in a while you got to change it up. That's why Michael Anderson, who I respect his YouTube videos, he does a great job. He works on clocks that I refuse to work on, such as electrical clocks, a little master crafters clocks where the boy and girl swing on the porch swings and stuff like that. He does a great job on working on them and cuckoo clocks, and he just got through working on like I said, a curfew clock, a Gilbert curfew clock. He gets tired of working on a cuckoo clock, so every once in a while he'll buy a different clock and I'll work on that, do YouTube videos. And I'm the same way, and that's why I wanted to work on something else. And so, like I said, I know how to repair these clocks. I just choose not to work on them every day. Still running, been 15 minutes. 7 a.m., the clock has been running for an hour. I'm happy. So I'm putting the hands back on. The thing about putting the hands back on is you wanna set the hands to a certain time. So it's 7 o'clock, so I'm putting the hour hand on the 7, and I'm putting the minute hand on the 12. And that way you get it precise in that process. And they're press bit on. And then afterwards, you want to rotate the hands, because you will see that the hour hand is bent a little bit, and it was hitting the second hand, so I bent it. And the purpose behind me rotating these hands is to make sure A, they're going to stay on, and B, they're clearing everything. And with this type of clock, you can rotate the hands backwards. And I keep hitting the wheel, and that's why it's stopping. But as you can see, the second hand is moving. Take these legs off. I can now put the dial back on. After I keep hitting the second hand. Sorry, the escapement wheel, and that's why I keep stopping. I need to get a clean paper towel and wipe this off. Or lint-free rags is supposed to do the trick also, and that's what this is. And the glass is coming out because I'm pressing too hard. And I don't want the glass to come out. So now I can put this back on. It just pushes it. And the minute hand came out. I didn't do a good job putting it on, and of course I stopped the clock again. So I'm going to put this on off camera where I can get the stuff up close to me without having this camera in my face. I told you I had a bunch of keys around here somewhere, and there are a bunch of keys in this bag. Whether there's going to be a key that fits that clock movement, I don't know. Hopefully. Out of that entire bag, I found one key. And it does the job. It probably isn't proper, but it does the job. And by the way, when I pick this thing up, I'm accidentally touching the escapement wheel, and when I touch the escapement wheel, the teeth that pin on that spring assembly that I was talking about, that's what's going between the forks, it's going on the wrong side of the fork. So once I mess with the escapement wheel again, it starts taking away. I just need to set it somewhere else so I don't touch the escapement wheel. And I wanted to mention that slot that is in that collar of that spring. I told you you could take a screwdriver and turn the collar one way or the other. One is easier if you can hold a steady hand. Just take a pair of small smooth jaw pliers like this and grab that collar and turn it one way or the other. But you have to be able to hold a steady hand either way, because these pliers are bigger than, you don't want to mess up that spring is what I'm getting at. I did find these knobs in that bag, and this knob, well, as you can see, the clock is still ticking away, and I can't put it in the case because I don't have the back to it. I gotta find the back. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please leave me some comments, and may God bless each and every one of you.